So I continued to work with my family doctor and see my psychologist, and we tried some different meds to help stabilize my mood and help me sleep. And over time, things did get somewhat better. I was feeling better. I was sleeping better. I still didn't want to leave the house. One day, Valerie, unbeknownst to me, called my high school buddies, close friends we'd made friendship ever since and still are, and got them to come over and pick me up and take me out for lunch. And I just remember being so furious that she did that my brain doesn't work. How can I go to lunch with these guys? There's nothing to talk about. I can't focus or concentrate. And again, hindsight's pretty good and pretty clear. And Valerie did lots of things to help and support me. Once the guys picked me up and we got out to the restaurant, well, within 5 minutes, we were a bunch of 40-something-year-old guys being 17-year-old high school students again and talking about our sports teams and people who dated who and various teachers and stuff. And it was fantastic to get out. So people often ask, well, what do you do to help a person with depression? And it's sometimes say, well, you can't make them do things, and I don't think there is a black and white answer. But in hindsight, I do appreciate the fact that Valerie made that call to my friends and that my friends were there for me. It's pretty amazing to have people that understand you and get you and just accept you the way you are. So working with the doctor and the psychologist, and got some meds so my mood was better, and it was kind of cool. It's kind of like the movie The Notebook, where she comes in and out of Alzheimer's, but in this case for me, it came in and out of crappy moods, and finally my mood lifted, kind of like the years before when the gray cloud lifted, and everything was awesome and feeling great. I was comfortable going out of the house. We were working on getting my dad's house ready to sell. I could go do the banking stuff. There was all sorts of stuff I could do, but I still didn't have concentration or memory, decision-making skills, so there was no way I could go back to work. And so when I worked with my doctor and psychologist, they said, I need to be off for at least 3 to 4 more weeks. And I'm thinking, I got bills to pay, and I can't be off. Who's going to do all the things I do in my job? And important thing to understand there too is those things always get done at work, and I'm not as important, not as indispensable as our mind has us think at times. And I think that's important for us to understand so that we can let go and let ourselves heal when we need to heal. I got to slow down. 2 big trucks just decided to pull over right there in front of me at 100 clicks. So I've got that kind of a Notebook feel. It's really cool, but I can't go back to work yet, and I've got memory and concentration issues, and the doc says to be off for another 3 weeks or so. So I work with the psychologist, and we started talking about memory issues, and he said, sometimes when we are trouble with memory and concentration, it's like there's a bottle in our brain and a cork in that bottle, and that cork is the bad event or events that you've lived through, and that cork in your memory blocks the bad things, block out the memory of them, but they also block out your good memories. And to remove that cork and get at your good memories, you got to work through the bad memories. And I'm thinking, okay, at that point, although I've talked to you about my dad's alcoholism, at that point in my life, I never told anyone my dad was an alcoholic. Alcoholism is a family secret. You don't tell anyone about it. You keep it inside, and anyway, that's just what alcoholism was. You didn't talk about it. And there's no way I'm going to talk about my dad's alcoholism after he had just died. You can't talk to anybody about dead people. That's just wrong. So here I am. He's talking to me about memory, and I don't know if he knew my dad was an alcoholic, but my mind's thinking he wants me to talk about my dad's alcoholism, and I'm not going to do it. So that was one of the only sessions when I went to see a psychologist or therapist that I felt it wasn't good, and I went home just furious. But I wanted to go back to work, and so my mind's thinking on this, and a couple days later I was watching a TVO show on how memory works, and about halfway through it, they talk about when bad things happen in your life, and it's kind of like in your brain there's a bottle and a cork blocks it, and you have to go through the cork and go through the bad memory to get to the good. And I'm thinking, hold it. That's what my psychologist said, and he gets like $120 an hour, and TVO is kind of free unless hopefully you donate. But I didn't believe my psychologist, but I believe TVO. Another thing about how this wonderful brain of ours works. It's unique at times. So I decided, I was seeing my psychologist every week. I decided to go back and see him and talk about my dad. And for the first time in my life, I shared some stuff that I wasn't very proud of, that I was the only other man in the house. There was my mom and 2 older sisters and 1 younger sister and my dad. And for years I watched my dad belittle and berate my sisters and my mom and put them down. I don't ever remember Dad being physically abusive to us, but, well, once or twice to me, but I thought I deserved it at that time. Another interesting story. But Dad was more of the scars he left were emotional, which can sometimes hurt more than the physical scars. But I didn't do anything to stop my dad from treating my mom and sisters that way. And when I shared about that with my psychologist and shared about Dad's alcoholism, again, he asked questions. And the question he said, well, how old were you when that was happening? He said, I can first remember being around 10 years old when Dad was talking that way to my mom and my sisters. And he said to me, he said, would you expect your 10-year-old son to be able to talk to you like that? And I thought, no, I wouldn't expect my 10-year-old son to do that. And then kind of ... it's, well, why do you expect that of yourself? And that's where the biggest cloud lifted. I was able to stop blaming myself. I was able to work through that angst of being a child who didn't step up to the plate against his father when he was belittling his sisters and his mother. And that night, I slept like a baby. And the next day, no, it wasn't the next day. It was about 2 days later, people's names were right there on the tip of my tongue. I could concentrate and make decisions again. It was amazing. Just by talking about it and working through it and taking the blame off and the guilt off, I was able to get my brain back and I was able to go back to work. That's all for now.